everyone. Yeah, but I know it's late. Sorry about that. But okay, starting off with this episode and getting my own personal weirdness out of the way first, I kind of got a chuckle out of the first little bit of this episode with both Laguna and Jin pretty much straight up rejecting Shiki's offer of friendship. Like Shiki going, "Can we be friends? Can we be friends?" And both Shiki and both Jin and Laguna saying, "Nope, I don't want to be I don't want to be friends with you. I'm only in this for my own reasons." And just the look of dejection of rejection, just the look of being dejected on Shiki's face of being shot down, is just purely hilarious. And again, obviously, it is for comedic effect, which the anime plays up even better, I think, better than in the manga. But at the same time, it is always the little touches like that which I appreciate, and I think it's in its own way, like moments like this where Shiki gets shot down for being like wanting to be friends with him. It does kind of show that Laguna and Jin are definitely more along the lines of people who have like allied themselves with the crew and just have their own reasons for for just being on the ship itself. So. Yeah, and obviously with both of in K-Wolf's cases, you can kind of clearly tell what this is all leading to ultimately. But it's like, I do like how there's a little bit more buildup of like, even they pretty much are like keeping their distance right now. With that said, obviously this is the episode where we finally get the reveal that Jesse has been the spy aboard Elsie's ship. But even then, Elsie still gives him the option to officially become one of her crew, or the other option is to just release him back to the government. Which obviously Jesse chooses the latter by refusing Elsie's offer. And I know there are many people out there who might call Elsie an idiot for refusing to just kill Jesse. But honestly, knowing what I know, I do think her desire not to kill is rather interesting, not just from the perspective of Ziggy teaching her the lesson about the but also because it shows that she really only resorts to the possibility that she only resorts to those methods if there is a 100% justifiable reason for it. And ultimately, like when you get down to it, even when the government arrived, it was kind of one of those things where she said, "Oh boy, justice is here again. Isn't this messy?" Like for her, the whole idea of the government is they're just kind of a nuisance, and she doesn't want to actually ruffle any feathers. But and just putting all this together, it does make you, and just putting all this stuff together, it does make you wonder what may constitute as a justifiable reason for killing someone, which, again, knowing what I know, anime onlys, you are in for a treat, because, there's only one person who Elsie really wants to kill. I'm not going to say who, but it is one person who 100% she is willing to throw her hand, she's willing to say, "I am going to kill you." But, like I said, I'm not going to spoil who that is here. With that said, though, we also get formally introduced to two new members of Elsie's crew: Hyoga, the blue-haired guy, and Gowan, the orange, spiky-haired, muscular guy. Now, obviously, I had to say those names because, once again, the anime, for some reason, didn't give translations for the text boxes. And honestly, I'm hoping this is something that gets changed when the second season gets released on DVD, because they've been doing this a lot, and I don't know why. But I will say as well, this is one time where I'm kind of glad they didn't, because their formal titles on the crew are kind of an interesting subject to talk about, because obviously, as you can probably tell, they are both Gowan and Hyoga are Elsie's right hands, her most trusted officers aboard the ship. But I'm choosing to intentionally say nothing more beyond that, or just not fully translate for you guys what those text boxes are and who these characters are, because saying anything more would be giving out a little too much information. All you do need to know, though, is their introduction is like the first big indicator of who Elsie really is. Like, Elsie is not Elsie is let's just say Elsie's more than a pirate. Let's just say that much. But like it's one of those things that kind of dives into the reason why Elsie became a pirate, and I kind of just want to let the show play out rather than say anything. Now, circling back to the Eden Zero crew, though, one little detail for all of you to keep the back of your mind for later is Laguna saying the deal he made with Witch was he wants to find a new home to settle down in the Aoi Cosmos, which is definitely understandable since he is a wanted man in the Sakura Cosmos, but it's also a tiny little bit of foreshadowing of where that search will lead him. And following that exchange, our heroes make it to their next location, Foresta, which we learn is a planet where the roles are supposedly reversed, that humans being treated like slaves by robots, only to find out that this is Ziggy's doing. And right from the jump, you can tell Mashima was heavily inspired by Planet of the Apes with this particular moment, and it is blatantly shows. It's funny. I didn't really click with me before when I read it in the manga, but suddenly something clicks with me now. But I gotta talk about the sound design in this whole moment, because the scene itself, just this whole picture, just the whole painting the picture of this scene itself of just humans being enslaved by robots in this scene, it was pretty unnerving reading it in the manga. So I was just wondering, what were they going to do with this scene in the anime? And honestly, I think the anime could have gone for something a little bit more subtle or more eerie for this moment, or just not use music at all, because for me, I'm not going to say it's a huge problem, but for me, the pretty much soundtrack that was used in the scene doesn't feel as creepy with the background music they chose. It feels even more so. The music feels a little bit overblown, I guess you could say. I wish it was just like it was either music was toned down a little bit, or they just used a different track or something. Just something that kind of ups a lot more just the uncomfortable and creepy factor of the situation. But with that said, we also got introduced to 3 new characters on Foresta, and these ones I can actually talk more about, which is Brittany, Orc, and Mira, who are part of Poseidon Nero's commando squad, so to speak. So, learning that on top of getting it confirmed by Orc, the big guy, that we are already deep in Poseidon Nero's territory, it really does show that, yeah, regardless of whatever happens here, it's going to make waves across the Aoi Cosmos, and it is going to reach Poseidon Nero's ears. So, we're pretty much, regardless of whatever happens, it is going to end with a full-on confrontation with Nero at some point. Considering that Foresta is, again, in his jurisdiction, and just the fact that his men are there, well, we pretty much know how this is going to end. For those 3. Of course, before we even confront the Poseidon Nero Commando Squad, though, we also get reintroduced to Couchpo, who lays out the details of what's happened here. And I'll be honest, based on the explanation that Couchpo gave, as well as just that whole scene when they're entirely surrounded by all those robots, I'll be honest. I do admit, looking back on this whole scenario, it does kind of beg the question of why Pino didn't just use her EMP, but at the same time, given the players we know to be more, we know who are involved in this whole thing, and for me personally, knowing who's the more directly involved mastermind behind this whole thing, on top of Ziggy's own involvement, I imagine the robots themselves have some kind of shielding that prevents an EMP from working. Again, can't say with certainty, but I imagine that's kind of what we were expected to believe here in this situation, and why Pino didn't use her EMP. But yeah, it's again a little weird, but I do understand. I think the context that Mashima was going for with this moment. Now, I do want to talk about the pacing of this episode, though, because already there's been a huge leap from last week's episode in terms of the amount of chapters which were adapted here, which is to say, this episode adapted chapters 112, 113, and 5 pages of 114. So, honestly, if we continue at this pace, I think we might just make it out of Foresta by the time Season 2 is done. But yeah, maybe, and yeah, so like, yeah, I'm definitely convinced that adapting all of Foresta is actually much more possible than I thought it was. On a side note, though, I also kind of loved how a good chunk of the comedic moments in this episode was just straight up grandpa comedy from Weiss, and him just not understanding anything about youth culture 50 years in the future. Like, I don't know why, but little moments like that really just make me just really make me say, yeah, Weiss really is a man from 50 years in the past. Like, yeah, of course, while not the big focus of the episode, one thing that was set up is the idea that this was once where where Ziggy and the Shining Stars had met with a man known as Zenlith, who was the master of and the originator of Satan Gravity, but he also died 1,000 years ago. So it's kind of subtly hints at the idea that one of our objectives is to find something Zenlith might have left behind to help Shiki improve his abilities, but I'm sure most people know what this means, like me, that the whole thing of let's just say that's a little bit of a lie of him dying, so to speak. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and this Crunchyroll. Be sure to notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just shit around, guys. Dark Knight of MMA signing off. Later, everyone.